Education, Skills and Culture Scrutiny Committee. My name is Charlotte and I am the Scrutiny Officer for the meeting. Present with me today in Talbot Civic Centre are Councillor Cypher Harman, Councillor Sonia Reynolds, Karen Jones, Craig Griffis, Mike Shaw, Hugh Jones, Andrew Thomas, Rhiannon Crowhurst, Nicola P.S., Justin Griffis, Steve Ball and Jane Woodman-Ralph. Masks do not need to be worn by us today as we are adhering to the social distancing guidelines as detailed in the risk assessment undertaken to allow us to come into the council chamber today. Just to make you all aware, today's meeting will be recorded. Can I also welcome members of the public and press to today's meeting? And can I kindly ask you all to observe the meeting only and not to speak or participate? Can I please remind you all to switch your phones to silent for the duration of the meeting, and just to provide you with the logistics of today's meeting. So firstly, we will take the joint meeting of Cabinet, Education, Skills and Culture Scrutiny Committee, where the Strategic School Improvement Programme report will be discussed. Following the conclusion of the Scrutiny Committee, the Cabinet will meet to take the decision. You would have received separate invitations for these meetings. In addition, can I refer you to the protocols for remote meetings which have been previously circulated, namely, your microphones should be switched to mute unless you are speaking. A roll call will be taken at the start of the meeting of all members and officers. Should you wish to ask a question or make a comment, can you please indicate either via the chat function or by raising your electronic hand via Teams. I will assume that you have all read the paperwork before us today prior to the meeting. Therefore, when asking a question, can you please indicate which page number you are referring to? And when speaking, please introduce yourself. As you can see, the first item on the agenda is to do a roll call. I will go through the members of the committee first, cabinet members, and then officers. During the roll call, I will also ask each member to confirm if they have a declaration of interest and to stipulate that declaration. So if I just move to this. So if I can start with Councillor Matthew Crowley.
Yes, present, Charlotte.
I've received apologies from Councillor Sharon Freegard. Councillor Wyndham Griffis.
Present.
Councillor Joe Hale.
Yes, present. Thank you, Charlotte.
Councillor Sian Harris. No. And apologies, members, I've just realised I've said I was going to do the declarations at the same time. So if I can just start back with Councillor Crowley, you said you were in attendance. Have you got a declaration for today?
No, I haven't, Charlotte, but can I just stop you there? I have to leave the meeting at 10 to 5. I have another commitment at 5 o'clock. So just to make the chair aware of that. Thank you, Charlotte.
Okay, thank you. And then Councillor Griffiths, you said you were in attendance. Have you got a declaration?
Other than I am a governor of 2 schools in the Neath area, if that counts.
Yes, that does. Councillor Joe Hale?
No, Charlotte, I have none. Thank you.
And then Councillor Sian Harris? Are you present? No. And then Councillor Nigel Hunt?
Present, Charlotte.
Do you have a declaration of interest?
No, I don't know.
Councillor Steve Hunt?
I am here, Charlotte, but just for clarity, my understanding is there's no declaration of interest if you're a governor with schools that are not mentioned in the report. So just for clarity, I am a governor of 2 schools, but they are not forming part of this today. But I obviously would make that declaration if Craig recognises I should.
Yeah, what I'll do is if I can just ask Craig just to come in on that point, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you, members. What I would encourage members to do is if you are a school governor, when Charlotte does call your name in the roll call, if you could just declare that you are the school governor at that point, but your dispensation allows you to speak and vote on such matters as well. So if I could just ask you can make that clear when you do get called. Thank you.
There we are. So Councillor Hunt, would you like to declare that?
Yes, I'm a governor of both Blind Elias Primary and a school Blind Elias Seven Sisters. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Councillor Jane Jones?
I'm present, Charlotte.
And have you got any declarations?
I am a school governor on the Federation of the Avon Valley.
Perfect. Councillor Dennis Keogh.
I'm here and I am a governor of the Ysgol Cwmbronbil.
Thank you. Councillor Simon Noyle.
Hi, Charlotte. Yes, I'm here. I'm a governor of YGG Neath.
Councillor Alan Llewellyn. Councillor Llewellyn.
Sorry, I do apologise. I was still on mute. Presennol, I'm President Charlotte, and I'm a governor at the Scrutiny, and I have a dispensation to speak and vote. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Councillor Sandra Miller.
I'm here, Charlotte, and I've got a declaration to make. Governor of Melin Primary School and Knoll Primary School.
Perfect. Councillor Rydian Maisen.
I am President Charlotte, and I am a governor of Cwmbronbil and Carmarthen Primary, but I have dispensation to speak and to vote.
Perfect. Councillor Suzanne Patterson.
Present, no declarations to say.
Thank you. Councillor Sheila Penry.
Yeah, President Charlotte. Yes, I'm a governor in Kevin Syson and Melin Primary, and I have permission for dispensation to speak and vote.
Thanks, Councillor Penry. Councillor Rebecca Phillips.
Yeah, Presennol Charlotte, and I'm a governor on Ysgol Gynradd Gymraeg Trebanos and Ysgol Gynradd Gymraeg Pontardawe, but I have dispensation to speak and to vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mark Prothero.
Thank you, Charlotte. Yes, I am present. I'm a governor of Kevin Syson Comprehensive School and a governor of Melin Primary School, but I do have dispensation to speak.
Perfect. I've also had apologies from Councillor Lynette Purcell. Councillor Saifra Harman.
Present, Charlotte, and I have no declaration of interest to make today.
Thank you. Councillor Suzanne Renkes.
Present, and again, I'm a school governor in Baglan, both primary schools in Baglan, but I have dispensation to vote and speak.
Thank you. Councillor Sonia Reynolds.
Present, Charlotte. I am a school governor of Ysgol Cymraeg Gwaun Gyrwyn, and I have dispensation to speak and vote. Thank you.
Councillor Anthony Richards.
Presennol, present, Charlotte. I have no declarations of interest other than the proposed site is in the ward that I represent.
Thank you. Councillor Marcia Spooner.
Hello, Charlotte. I'm the governor at Rose Primary School. Dispensation to speak and vote.
Thank you. I've had apologies from Rachel Taylor. Councillor Dave Whitelock.
Yes, present. Thank you, Charlotte. I am a governor at Ysgol Cwmbronbil and I have dispensation to vote and speak.
Councillor Rob Wood.
Present. I'm a governor at Ysgol by Baglan and I have a dispensation to speak and vote. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Arwyn Wilcock.
Yes, present. I am not the governor at any school, therefore I have no declarations of interest in that respect or any related matters.
Thank you. I've had apologies from co-opted member Adam Amore and then co-opted member Marie Caddick.
Yes, present, Charlotte, and I am a governor of St Joseph's Primary School, Neath, and I have had dispensation to speak and vote.
Perfect. And then I've also had apologies from co-opted member Linda Newman, co-opted member Roberta De Benedictis. No. And then I've also had a request from Councillor Rosalind Davis to attend. Are you in attendance?
Presennol, present, Charlotte.
Do you have any declarations?
Yes, I have. I'm a governor at Godricraig Primary School.
Thank you.
And in Slovera.
Thank you. And Councillor Charlotte Goldsworthy?
Yes, present, Charlotte, and I've got no declarations.
No declarations. So if I move to cabinet members, Councillor Edward Latham.
Yeah, present, Charlotte, and I'm a governor at Tywin Primary School along with Ysgol Bay Baglan.
Thank you. Councillor Carol Clement Williams.
Excuse me, I'm here, Charlotte, and I'm governor
in Baglan Primary School that have dispensation to speak.
Thank you. Councillor Mike Harvey.
I'm Charlotte, present. I'm Chair of Governors at Abbey Primary School. Thank you.
Councillor Doreen Jones.
Yeah, I'm here, Charlotte, and I'm a governor on Llangatto Community School and Kilfrew Primary School, and I have dispensation to speak and vote.
Thank you. Councillor Alan Lockyer.
President Charlotte, and I'm a governor at YG Castle Neath and the Knoll Primary School, and I have dispensation to speak and vote.
Thank you. Councillor Peter Rees.
Yes, I'm here, Charlotte. I'm a governor at Kevin Syson and Cranach Primary, and I have dispensation to speak and vote.
Thank you. Councillor Peter Richards.
President Charlotte, I'm a governor at both Baglan Primary Schools, Baglan Primary and Baglan. I have dispensation to speak and vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Annette Wingrave.
Councillor Wingrave.
Apologies from Councillor Wingrave, Charlotte.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Councillor Leanne Jones.
Present Charlotte, I'm a governor at Kevin Syson Comprehensive and Melon Primary, and I have dispensation to speak and vote as well.
Perfect, thank you. Before I take the attendance of officers, I can see that Councillor Crowley and Councillor Mark Prothero, you have your hands up. Is everything all right?
Just to say, Charlotte, I was first out of the starting block before Craig had given the advice. I am Chair of Governors of Wyndham Primary, and I sit on Towin Primary School as well, but I would have dispensation to vote and to speak. Just to clear that up, Charlotte, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Joe Hale, Councillor Mark Prothero.
Thanks, Charlotte. Yeah, I just wanted to check. I had a technical blip then when I was giving my my attendance and my declarations. Just wanted to make sure you got them. But
yes.
I'm declaring for Kevin Syson Comprehensive School as a governor and Melon Primary, but I do have dispensation to speak and vote.
Yeah, that's correct. Thank you. I've got
Thanks,
that down.
Charlotte.
And Councillor Sean Pacey, I can see your hand up as well.
Yes, yes, Charlotte. Just wanted to confirm my attendance. I was a bit late getting an invite to the meeting today, so my name wasn't called. I've got no declaration of interest that I'm a governor of Wyndham Primary School, but I'm not intending to take an active role in the meeting. Just observe today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then if I go on then to officer attendance, please. Karen Jones.
Present Charlotte.
Andrew Thomas.
Present Charlotte.
Andrew Jarrett.
Present Charlotte.
P.S.
Present Charlotte.
Craig Griffis.
Present Charlotte.
Rhiannon Crowhurst.
Present Charlotte.
Jones.
Yes, present Charlotte.
Mike Shaw.
Present Charlotte.
Justin Griffis.
Present Charlotte.
Steve Ball.
Yes, present Charlotte.
Roger Bowen.
Yes, present Charlotte.
Deb Holder Phillips. Julie Merrifield.
Present Charlotte.
Kate Windsor Brown.
Present Charlotte.
Jane Woodman Ralph.
Present.
Have I missed any officers at all? Nope. Then I think that's the attendance complete. Therefore, if I could move then on to the second item on today's agenda, which is to appoint a chairperson and a vice chairperson. Can I please have a proposer for a chair? Any proposals for a chair?
In Charlotte, Councillor Patterson.
Yeah, and who are you proposing?
I would like to propose Councillor Sonia Reynolds to be chair.
Thank you. Can someone second that proposal?
I second that,
Charlotte.
Yes, if you do not indicate to the contrary by raising your electronic hand, it will be assumed that you are in favour of the recommendations. There we are. I don't see any hands showing, so that proposal has moved. So therefore, can Councillor Sonia Reynolds please undertake the role as chair?
Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you for opening the meeting so effectively. Can I ask for a proposer for a vice chair, please?
I propose Councillor Saif Rahman as chair, as vice chair. Councillor
Thank you. And a seconder?
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you very much. So in that case, Councillor Saif Rahman, can you undertake the role of vice chair? I have I have Chair's announcements. In the light of the recent news about the tragic death of Sir David Amos MP for Southend West, I ask the committee to respectfully hold a minute's silence as a mark of respect. Thank you. We will come back on when the minute is finished. Thank you, everybody. Right, if we move ahead with the meeting, you'll note that declarations of interest was stipulated at the point of the roll call. Charlotte will circulate a declaration form to those that declared. Can you please complete the form and return to Charlotte? We move to the item on the agenda for this meeting, which is the Strategic School Improvement Programme. I will assume that all members have read the report. However, for the benefit of the public, I am going to ask officers to provide a brief overview of the report. The report is for decision at the Cabinet meeting that follows this meeting, and the recommendation is on page 25 of the Cabinet papers. Can I move to officers? Andrew, I'm assuming that is you.
Yep, thank you, Chair. What I intend to do today is update members on the most recent part of the process, which was obviously the objection period. At the Cabinet meeting on the 16th of June 2021, members agreed to move to that period for statutory objections, and that period was held between the 17th of June 2021 and the 14th of July. So I'm going to take members just quickly through the objection report, and also the Welsh Language Impact Assessment, because those are the two things which have obviously been updated since members considered this proposal last. So in terms of the objections received in total 297 written objections during that 28-day period. A number of the emails we received were largely or wholly in standardised form. Of particular note, 92 of the 297 emails were standardised, and they stated, and I will read it out: I object to the school proposal in the Swansea Valley. I do not believe that this is the best solution for the education in our community, and feel that it has been a rushed process and forced on us and our children from people from outside of our area. I specifically feel that the proposal will be worst for education, have a negative impact on traffic, a negative impact on local communities. 35 of the objections we've received were in direct relation to the Welsh language, and 13 of these were emails, and they claimed there would be a detrimental impact on the Welsh language, and I will deal with the Welsh Language Impact Assessment after this. None of the themes that came forward in the objection report were different from the what came forward in the consultation report. I don't intend to take members through the detail because, as you say, we expect members to have read the report. However, I do know that questions have been put forward, so a lot of the answers to some of the themes raised in the objection report I will be dealing with in terms of my responses to questions. If I could now move on to the Welsh language, and because, as I said, at least 35 of the objections were to do with the Welsh language. The first thing I think I need to say is that when we're reorganising English medium education, there's not a requirement specifically within the school organisation code to undertake a Welsh language impact assessment. But as we know, the Swansea Valley is an area which is deemed to be linguistically sensitive. So we did do a Welsh language impact assessment, and it reported to members last time. After Cabinet in June, we did receive an email from Welsh Government on the 25th of June stating that they had concerns about our Welsh language impact assessment in that it didn't explicitly address the issues around what linguistically sensitive means and there was insufficient mitigation. So what ensued was we went back and forth with Welsh Government. We requested a meeting to obviously discuss what their concerns were. There was a meeting on the 27th of July when we got on the table with the Deputy Director from Welsh Government, who was most helpful, I have to say. And on the 9th of August, we received an email from the Deputy Director in Welsh Government saying, I feel that we agree that there are options that could be further explored to mitigate the potential impacts on neighbouring Welsh medium schools and therefore the Welsh language. And we agreed as a way forward that we would commission a language planning consultant to undertake additional work over the summer to further inform our Welsh language impact assessment. And that's exactly what has happened. There's reference in the report to the work of the planning consultant. The report isn't in the pack. The report isn't our report. It's a Welsh Government report, and it's still in draft format. We received a draft on the 8th of October, I believe. There are certain things in the report which I think we would challenge, but I think what's most important is we've included in this report for members the summary and the mitigation that was mentioned in the planning consultant's report, so that members have the full information around the mitigation and the term and what linguistically sensitive means in the Swansea Valley. So we agreed with Welsh Government terms of reference, which was to define and provide context to the term itself, i.e. linguistically sensitive, setting out the principles for safeguarding and promoting language in such an area, consider how these principles could be applied to Pontardawe within the context of the Swansea Valley proposal, and provide options around mitigating actions to reduce negative impacts. And I say that again, to reduce negative impacts, not eliminate, to reduce negative impacts on the stability and future growth of the Welsh language in the short, medium and long term. There was a meeting with one member of my staff who has recently joined the school reorganisation team, Kate Windsor-Brown, who is a head teacher of a first language Welsh medium school, with the planning consultant, Myrian Priest-Jones. We received the draft report from Welsh Government on the 8th of October, as I said, and that in total is 18 working days. And that's, of course, if the gentleman was working on the report full time. As I've said, the report isn't owned by us. It's a Welsh Government report, but it has been used very usefully to update our Appendix K, which is our updated Welsh language impact assessment. We've attached the former Welsh language impact assessment to the integrated impact assessment so members can see the difference and how it's been updated. We feel that there are a number of areas we would have wanted to discuss with the planning consultant in terms of the report, and through no fault of his own, and please don't think I'm trying to erode the credibility of the gentleman who wrote the report. I think his credibility is beyond reproach, but he did have a short period of time to conduct the report. So there are a couple of areas that we would certainly contest, but haven't had the opportunity to do so. I'll just give you two examples of that. The report says most of the Welsh medium preschool provision is provided by Mudiad Meithrin. We don't believe that is the case, although we do know some are registered with them. Mudiad Meithrin do operate in the Swansea Valley, there's no argument there. And while there's a need for greater childcare across Neath but Talbot in general, the Swansea Valley area has more than most, and the need is met, and we have recently created extra Welsh medium spaces in YGG Pontardawe, and we've just submitted a Welsh medium capital grant to Welsh Government to increase Welsh medium childcare in Trebanos, which I think, and to be fair to the planning consultant, he wouldn't have known that at the time of writing the report. And then there are some claims in there around little support for funding to develop the Welsh medium in the Swansea Valley. Well, again, our earlier colleagues say there's ample funding is available in the Swansea Valley area. So there are a number of areas that, had we had the opportunity, would have gone back just for clarification. But I think the main thing is we've included within our Appendix K all the mitigation measures that he has suggested. Those mitigation measures, many of them were in our draft Welsh language, WESP, and the draft WESP has been circulated to this committee. upon request. And the purpose of circulating that in advance of the meeting on Monday, the 1st of November, is that members can cross-reference the mitigations within the Welsh Language Impact Assessment before them today and the draft WESP, so that they can see the correlation between the two, and members can see today how much of that mitigation we've included to make sure that there isn't a detrimental impact on the Welsh language in the Swansea Valley should this proposal go ahead. Members will further know we've invested heavily in terms of capital funding in the Swansea Valley already, particularly so in Ysgol Gymraeg, Llanfair Aberdeen, where £27 million worth of capital funding has been invested, and over £2 million in Pontypridd Welsh. And we've just applied, as I've said, for I think it's £1 million worth of funding for Trebanos Welsh School. So, and all those capital schemes will be concluded before this scheme is brought to bear if members decide to go that way today, and therefore the impact of that capital funding in those schools will have been felt. And I think the other thing I would inform members is that our draft WESP, which is, and we're not here to debate the WESP today, but our draft WESP is our vehicle for describing how we intend to increase the number of Welsh medium speakers in Neath Talbot by 2050, and that's a pan-authority strategic document. So our commitment is not to one single area, but it's a commitment to the whole of Neath Talbot. And the other thing I think is really important, that when members make the decision today, they've had all the information that is available to us, so that you can make a safe and robust decision. So that's all I'd like to say in terms of introduction, Chair. Happy now to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Andrew. I'd like us all to bear in mind that what Andrew said in terms of we have discussed this before, and there is a lot of information post-consultation, including the consultation responses to address at this meeting. I hope that people will bear with me, because I'm going to take questions from members who notified at the pre-briefing yesterday. So I have a list of those who wish to ask questions. I will then work down the list of all who indicate afterwards. But before we go there, I'm going to move back to the Democratic Services Officer to confirm attendance of a person who was delayed in getting in.
Thanks, Chair. Councillor Sian Harris, I can see you're in attendance. Can you just confirm that you are, and if you have any declarations, please?
Yeah, present, and school governor, so dispensation to speak and vote, please.
Perfect, thank you. There we are, Chair.
Thank you. The first person on my list of notified people is Councillor Alan Llewellyn.
Diolch yn eilydd. Thanks, Chair, and thanks to Andrew Thomas, the Director, for his introduction to the report. And some of my questions will pick up on some of the points that were made there. As I'm sure all members and officers will appreciate, this has been a very long set of papers to read, but I've tried to submit questions in advance as far as possible, and I'll recap on those questions with the permission, Chair, and also with the permission I will respond if necessary, and also make some general comments about the proposal and about the recommendations at the appropriate time. If I can recap on the questions that I've submitted, and some of them were yesterday as requested in advance, but some have been during the course of today as people have raised issues with me. Can it be confirmed that 21st century funding can be used on renovating buildings, not only on new build? Can members be provided with the assessments of potential alternative sites for Godogaig Primary School within the Godogaig area? Can members be provided with a full Welsh Government commissioned report referred to at page 19 in Appendix K? I know from the comments made by the Director that it may still be in draft, but it is essential to understand the context. I'd like to refer to paragraph 45 on page 13 of the report, which states that the full business case approval has also been awarded subject to conditions. What are those conditions? And I have received the following question from a member of the public, which I paraphrase and I think is relevant to this afternoon's meeting. Paragraph 51 onwards on page 14, the person who contacted me asks what pupil numbers these figures are based on. There are currently 533 pupils in the 3 schools, and elsewhere 587 pupils are referred to, and the correspondent estimates that 533 would leave the school funding at £4,597 per pupil. 598 would be needed to achieve the NPT average of Neath Talbot average of £4,095 per pupil, and 700 to achieve £3,501 per pupil, as stated in paragraph 52. Therefore, what the person who has contacted me, who is a local resident, has asked is where are the other pupils coming from to meet that figure and make the school viable on the figures that are provided within the report. Those are the questions that I have, Chair. And as I mentioned, I'd appreciate an opportunity to come back and make some further comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. If I can ask speakers coming next, if you have a list of questions, perhaps we can have them a few at a time, just to give officers a chance, because it's a bit daunting and it keeps the public informed of what is being addressed as well. Thank you.
Yes, no, I appreciate that, Chair, though I have submitted most of those, well, all of them in advance. Yeah.
Thank you, Alan.
Okay, thank you, Chair. And thank you for submitting these questions in advance, Alan. It certainly does aid proper scrutiny. So I'm going to try and rattle through the answers for members, and if I do forget one of them, I did try to write them down as you would go along, just refresh my memory. Just in terms of 21st century schools funding, you asked, can money be spent on remodelling? I've got the Welsh Government business case guidance in front of me. And it does, Welsh Government says you can apply for funding for the cost of extensions to existing buildings and the enhancement of land, road or buildings. And it further goes on then to talk about what enhancement they mean by enhancement. Enhancement is where money is spent on existing asset which substantially increases its value or lengthens its useful life. It then goes on to say it excludes routine repairs and maintenance. So it will not fund patch and mend in the 21st century schools funding programme. I think there were some comments within the objection report around we've taken that approach with Ysgol Gymraeg Ystlafera in the north. We've done a patch and mend approach there. I think having spent £27 million, and you will know this as well as I, Alan, that's not a patch and mend approach. That is very much a significant remodelling of the site. We discussed when we sat down to talk about the work there, then it would be better to knock everything down and start again. But of course, wouldn't be possible because of the constraints and obviously the need for continuation of education. So we've had a long, protracted and more expensive, because of the way we've had to do it, way of remodelling the capital assets at Ystlafera, and I think we've ended up with an excellent outcome. But that is not a patch and mend approach. In terms of the alternative sites, there was a full explanation given at the consultation report stage back in June around the various options we've looked at. I do know, I think it was Councillor Ross Davis brought forward an option of building on, I think it was the Knoll Road site, and our appraisal of that option, whilst it was a difficult site to build on, it was probably possible, certainly not impossible. However, when we looked at the cost of the various costing options, that would have costed £3 million more capital than the £22.7 million we're talking about with this proposal. But more crucially, £500,000 additional revenue funding year on year, every year for a standalone Godreg school compared with a school with three sets of pupils in a single school. So we did discuss that back in June when we took members through the result of the consultation exercise. In terms of the full report, it's not our report to share. We did have permission from Welsh Government to include the mitigation measures and the paragraph where the planning consultant spoke about no amount of mitigation can compensate for the loss of the Welsh language should this proposal go ahead. but the planning consultant then went on to talk about the 11 mitigation measures which we consider, and we've included all of those in our Welsh language impact assessment. And as I said, we would have wished to have an opportunity to go back to the author and challenge some of the assertions, and that's no criticism. He, I think he did the best job he could in the time that he had available, and I'm very grateful for the work that he did. In terms of the full business case approval, whenever we get full business case approval, it always comes with a raft of conditions. In terms of planning permission, literally, you won't be able to see this, but there are literally pages of it. But I think probably the one that you're referring to is that we've got full outline business case, unconditional approval, and what that means is that should members decide to go ahead today, then we can go out to appoint a contractor, do all the planning permissions, any land acquisitions that we would need to do, and spend, if you like, many hundreds of thousands of pounds, getting to the point where we understand the full cost of this proposal in detail. And that's what outline business case approval allows you to do. And we've got full business case approval subject to all the planning and the various stipulations within it. But it also says this new project has been approved subject to a satisfactory completion of a Welsh language impact assessment. So that that was in the full business case approval. And I think we would argue quite strongly that we have now completed a satisfactory Welsh language impact assessment because we've included in ours all the detail that the Welsh Government planning consultant brought forward in terms of the mitigation, which was the weakness the Welsh Government said was in our Welsh language impact assessment previously. Yeah, pupil numbers, yeah, and lastly, Alan, pupil numbers. I didn't really understand, if I'm honest, the question, but I think the per pupil funding for a school is an equation of the budget for the school divided by the numbers in the school. I don't think anybody is saying that school has to have 730 pupils in it for it to be viable at all. A school gets a budget based on, in the main, the number of pupils it has in the school, and then the per pupil funding is calculated thereafter. If the question is really about where the other pupils are coming from, then I can absolutely 100% categorically give members an assurance here again, there is no intention whatsoever to close another school in the Swansea Valley to accommodate the pupils into this school. The school numbers have been calculated on the number of pupils who live in the catchment areas of those 3 schools involved, and would be able to claim a place now and into the future. So there's no suggestion about any closure of any other school. I'm telling you, all members, that in front of my chief exec, in front of my leader, once again, there's absolutely no intention to close any further school in the Swansea Valley. In fact, as I say, we've just invested in some of the schools and just applied for more funding from Welsh Government to invest in childcare and additional learning needs in one of the schools just last week.
Thank you, Andrew. Do you want to come back on any of that, Alan? Councillor Swain?
Yeah, yes, I think, Chair, what I'll do is combine sort of perhaps any points of detail coming back on the questions with some general comments on the proposal, if that's okay with you. I appreciate, Chair, that you've asked members to concentrate on response to the reports in the period since the last meeting in June. However, I have to make a brief reference to the beginning of this process, which is relevant to one of the questions I asked today. From the very beginning, the Council based its proposals on closing community primary schools and building a very large centralised school in Pontardawe. A detailed business case was submitted to Welsh Government before there was any consultation with parents or the community. Now, the impression was given that 21st century school funding would not be available for renovation or development of existing schools, but we know now that is not the case. And I'm not talking about patch and mend or routine repairs and maintenance. An imaginative and creative plan could have been considered for the future of primary education in the Swansea Valley that involved parents, children, governors and the community, and submitted to Welsh Government. Now, locking into this current proposal left all those stakeholders confused, alienated and disillusioned, frankly. Now, the objections report shows that people are consistent in the concerns that they've expressed, which don't seem to have been taken on board. And I would emphasise to members that these are not small or unviable schools. They have substantial and growing pupil numbers and improving results. And by the way, after our last scrutiny meeting on this proposal, I observed the Cabinet meeting, which was very dismissive about objections to the scheme. And I will say that I think that representations made by people are based on educational considerations and the interests and well-being of pupils and communities. Now, during the period when this plan has been under consideration, concerns emerged about the stability of the quarry spoil above Godalming Primary School. Now, the future of the building itself will be subject to a detailed report in the next 2 weeks. But there has been no serious effort, as far as I see, to identify an alternative site to keep a primary school in Godalming, a village which is distinct from Pontardawe, and of course it is the school that's furthest away from the proposed Anistero site. And the question that I asked was, you know, if there had been a detailed assessment of alternative proposals, and frankly there doesn't seem to have been. Now, I refer now, and I'm sure other members will have something to say on that. I refer now to the Welsh Language Impact Assessment on page 17 and Appendix K. I'm a bit curious about the appendix, as it now seems to combine two separate external reports with different conclusions. But for today, I want to concentrate on the additional report commissioned by Welsh Government, as referred to on page 19 and in the Director's introduction. Now, the fact that Welsh Government commissioned a report suggested weaknesses in the original assessment. And I have, of course, asked for all members to have a copy of the full report because we need to see the full context. And I'm concerned that its significance is being downplayed. Now, let me quote the main conclusion. It should be clearly underlined that in terms of language planning principles and processes noted above, no mitigating actions in the context of the future of the Welsh language in the Swansea Valley will compensate for continuing with this proposal as it stands. Now, that's a very, very significant statement. And, you know, the Director said that the responses in the revised language impact plan were to satisfy Welsh Government. Well, are Welsh Government satisfied with those responses? You know, I think we need to know that as a scrutiny committee before a decision is made today. And I think that to respond by rejecting the first recommendation to reconsider the plan and to say that the other 11 recommendations may or may not be addressed in the new WESP, the Welsh Education Strategic Plan, is simply unacceptable. Now, I could take in many further points, but I know other members want to speak at this stage. And with your permission, Chair, I wish to come back at the recommendations stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Llewellyn. Andrew, have you got anything further to say on that?
Well, right. Chair, just to be clear, when we put the funding application into Welsh Government for the original outline business case, that does include various options. So we did consider options at that stage. So, yeah.
Thank you. I'm therefore moving on to Councillor Stephen Hunt.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Andrew, for the brief update to the report that is in front of us. As mentioned, quite a lengthy report. It's always difficult when you follow Councillor Llewellyn because a number of the points he raised would also be part of my questions and queries to you.
You appear to be muted, Councillor Hunt.
I hope nobody's muting me as I speak because it happens a lot. Apologies, so I don't know what Andrew heard. Andrew, I'll watch the mute button and I'll try and keep going this time. Firstly, can I just say that your recruitment programme with officers and head teachers, you've had an excellent addition with Mrs. Kate Windsor-Brown. I certainly have huge respect for her and she'll do a fantastic job for you. I just want to make that point. again, you would have had my two particular queries and questions as in pre-briefing and prior to this meeting today. So I will go through them. There's one of the questions, as you'll be aware, will overlap with Councillor Llewellyn's point, but I'll elaborate further on that because I think it's quite an important point to raise. So the first relating to the consultation process, and the second will be relating to the funding issues as in the 21st Century School programme. In respect of the consultation, I understand that obviously there was a limit on face-to-face meetings taking place during the consultation process due to the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. And I note that there's no requirement to hold consultation meetings, but I wondered why no virtual meetings were held, given that when school closures have been proposed in the past, public meetings have obviously been held. Could officers indicate how they sought to ensure that there were suitable platforms for consultees to make their views known, and in particular that the directly affected school staff, parents and said communities, obviously affected by the proposed school closure? Secondly, having considered the 21st Century School funding and approaches that both Welsh Government and Council consider, and this is the point I'm raising that overlaps that you probably have given me some answers on, but one of the concerns I've expressed previously is that the approach is not investing in maintaining of the school is something that can have a detrimental impact on the community, where good primary schools with first-class educations are targeted for closure because of suitable funding for maintenance and long-term sustainability is not available to local government. Although I appreciate that others have an argument, of which I don't agree, that schools are not the centre or heart of the community and only a premises for education. I believe they do form part of a village hub in certain circumstances, and I can obviously especially confirm this to be the case in St Sisters in the Dillais Valley, and I suspect the same as well across the county borough. There is no denying the significance they can have, so I wondered at this stage whether there are any proposals for a change in funding models, or whether discussions are being held with Welsh Government on future priorities surrounding the programme to address these issues, as it's clear to me that different funding models need to be introduced. Hence, getting to the point that Ali mentioned, maintenance funding being just one, to protect and support our primary schools across all of Neath, Talbot County Borough Council, so that the communities themselves can decide where their children can achieve the best education. Otherwise, given the context as using the very high maintenance and refurbishment costs with our schools currently, then it would be correct in saying that we would probably find ourselves as a council in this position in the very near future, where closing schools in our communities will be considered as part of the 21st Century programme. So just summing up, Chair, with your permission, the elaboration I'm making is that you've answered the question of plastering over a crack, but maybe it's not yours for you, Andrew. It's probably for our cabinet leader and hierarchy in our system, is to get Welsh Government to recognise that maintenance funding could be or should be a priority. So safeguarding schools that are delivering that first-class education as and when needed. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Chair. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Hunt. I'll ask Rihanna to come in on the consultation in a minute, and I'll give some response to that as well. But if I could just deal with the funding issues. You just heard me respond to Councillor Llewellyn around, it won't, 21st Century School funding will not pay for basically our responsibility to repair and maintain our buildings. You know that even though we've been working on school reorganisation for 10 years, we have something like still have an £80 million building maintenance backlog left in Neath, Talbot. We started with £110 million, I think it was. We've reorganised schools, yet the other schools have got worse. So it does feel like sometimes you're pedaling furiously, and the problem is still bigger than the sort of what you're doing. So your question around, am I aware of any change of strategy from Welsh Government? Then no, I'm not. 21st Century Schools is their flagship policy in terms of their strategic approach to replacing aging, tired buildings across Wales. There are local circumstances where they will fund, major remodelling works like Ystlafera, and you also heard me say that if we'd had a clean piece of paper and there was an adequate sized piece of land in Ystlafera, it would have been much quicker, much cheaper to build a brand new school for the pupils in Ystlafera than the approach we had to take because of circumstances. And I think we've done a pretty good job up there. But as I said earlier, that is not a patch and mend approach. And when we do look at our school estate, we are trying to create something which is transformational, which will stand the test of time over the next 40, 50 years. We're not just trying to, as you say, put a bit of plaster and a bit of sticky tape on our buildings. Our children deserve a lot more and a lot better of us than that, I believe. Just in terms of the consultation, you're absolutely right, Councillor Hunt. There is no requirement to do face-to-face meetings, but we've always done them in the past. We believe that the way we consulted enabled us to get the views of the people of the valley. I think we've seen that from the number of responses that we've had. Everybody has had a response, whether it be a collective response or an individual response, where we've been contacted by individuals. We did do face-to-face meetings with pupils, and I think that was really, really important. And we offered meetings with teachers as well. But I think we just thought we devised a way of making sure that we took the community thoughts and beliefs around this proposal. We could understand them, and we had a mechanism to respond to them. We consulted, I think it was for 6 weeks longer than we're duty bound to do within the school organisation code. That reflected the circumstances we were in. It also shows our commitment to making sure that we do take consulting with people very seriously. And in the consultation report back in June, I think it ran to about 300 pages. There were very detailed responses to the consultation responses that we had received. So I don't know, Rihanna, if there's anything further you'd add to that.
No, I don't think so. I think you've covered it all there. I think we felt that everyone who asked us for a query was responded to, and the consultation document covered everything else. So no, I don't think there was any more we could do at that time.
Sorry, thank you. I was on mute myself.
Thank you.
Chair.
Okay. Yep.
Chair,
yes, Councillor Hunt.
Briefly. Yeah,
briefly, please, Councillor Hunt.
Yeah, it will be briefly. I think you missed the point I was making in a political sense, and I understand your response, and I thank you for that. Maintenance can run in tens of millions of pounds, I appreciate. But I think a political decision could be made. I mean, I don't suggest that every school is beyond repair. We cannot continue to use that particular situation as to close a school. If we could get recognition through our cabinet member for education, our leader, to recognise Welsh Government to set up a programme of that particular maintenance cost to when we decide the school is fit for purpose, but it does need that money, instead of us saying we haven't got the money, so we got to close it. That was the point I was making. I think maybe it's not for you, it's probably for Peter, the leader, and others, but that's the point I make. And I think it's a change of attitude at Welsh Government, where they get the funding to deliver what we want as communities, and that is the point I'm trying to make here, and I hope you understand. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Can I just remind people that we're looking at the substance of a paper on school improvement for the Swansea Valley area, and can I please ask all members to stick to the material matters of this report in in making statements and asking questions. We're all focused here on the best quality of education for our young people in these schools and the best opportunities they can be given. Can I please then call on Councillor Rosalind Griffiths, who notified of a point she wished to make? Councillor Rosalind Davis. Sorry, Rosalind.
Well, Steve Hunt has brought up what I was going to ask regarding a public meeting. I know it couldn't be held because of COVID restrictions, but the complaints that I've received is that why didn't you try to do a meeting online? It's all very well having a campaign on Let's Talk. They would have liked to have a meeting online with each individual school.
My response to that is as I said earlier, I think we felt we had a mechanism to consult with people which was effective. It meant we could get people's views. It meant we could respond to them. So it was just we felt we had a mechanism that we could consult with people adequately. And Chair, if I may, can I go very briefly go back to, because there is a point that Councillor Hunt raised. I would like to go back to you, and I should have mentioned it in my response to you, Councillor Hunt. The local authority does have £1.2 million of its own capital funding, which it does spend on that sort of patch and mend, worst first basis. So it isn't, repairing our schools isn't entirely dependent upon 21st Century Schools capital. We do have capital funding every year, but of course, as I'm sure you can imagine, £1.2 million by the time you've paid for the statutory testing, which takes about a third of that 1.2 million straight away, your hardwire testing, your Legionnaires, that sort of stuff. And then our building surveyors assess our schools on a regular basis, and repairs are undertaken on a worst first basis. So it isn't quite as stark, but I take the point you're making.
Thank you, Andrew. Is that at the end of your points, Rosalind?
No, I'm going to make some more statements. Of course, at the last meeting, I did state regarding the location of the new school, and I won't go into details of everything that I brought up. But for Yslfer and Godreg, Pontardawe has never been a part of Godreg and Yslfer. And to be fair, most of the pupils who will be attending, well, I don't know if they'll actually go, but they'll be living 5 miles away from the school. Now, that is not a community school for Godreg and Yslfer villages. And you claim that the new school will be a community school. Well, it won't be for Yslfer and Godreg.
Thank you, Councillor Griffis. Do you want to say anything?
Davis.
I happen to know a Rosalind Griffis. I'm sorry, Rosalind. Okay.
Councillor Davis is right in terms of the 5 miles, and obviously just in terms of transport, home to school transport, if this decision goes ahead, will be provided. And I know you know that. The other thing I think members need to know is that many children in the 3 schools involved, they travel to different schools right across the Swansea Valley. Now, I know there's a high percentage of pupils from Godreg attend Godreg. I will, I accept that. But there are, I think, from memory, about 22% of the children come to Godreg from outside of the Godreg catchment. And in terms of Llanguwch and Altwen, it's even higher. So there are children already moving outside of their catchment school. So in terms of community can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. So there's a lot of pupil movement every day amongst the 3 schools. The data that I've just given you there, Councillor Davis, it was certainly true at a point in time when we started this proposal. So it may have changed by now, but there are definitely children living outside the catchment at Godreg.
Well, I accept that some of them actually go to Welsh medium schools, and there are a few who go to Roman Catholic schools in Swansea, from what I understand. But otherwise, that's the only option for them. There's been over the many years since Pantake School closed in the 70s, that Godrewgraig was the community school for Ysgrifera village and Godrewgraig and Kilmaen Gwyn.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. I'm going to go to our scrutiny officer for a comment at the moment. Seen them, thank you, Charlotte. Okay, I am going to go to Councillor Suzanne Paddison, who pre-notified next, followed by Councillor Rebecca Phillips. Then I'm going to go to those who haven't spoken yet on the list of hands, and that's Councillor Anthony Richards, and then back through those who've already spoken once already. So Councillor Suzanne Paddison.
Thank you very much, Chair. We're here to sort of look at the post-consultation part of the process now, to look at what came up during the consultation. And I understand that, you know, we have had quite a few objections. But at the beginning of this meeting, we were asked to declare whether we had any interests. And if you didn't indicate, then you didn't have any. And I think that is the nature of human beings in this case, is how many people have not responded at all because they're actually in favour of this school. We only hear the people who object. And last time this school was on the agenda, I did ask Andrew Thomas, the director, what percentage of the people in the area that could have responded negatively, and I believe, Andrew, it was less than 1%. Has that changed?
I think it was about 1.5%.
Oh, I beg your pardon then, right, I'm sorry.
I think it was about 237 consultation responses from a population of about 15,000. So on that basis, 297 of the same base represents about 1.98%, so it's less than 2%.
I stand corrected, then I've got a skewed memory of on that occasion. But it is quite low. And that is the nature of human beings. If you object, then you will go out of your way and to say. But I think, you know, when we sit here as county borough councillors, we are looking for the whole population. And I think the silent majority there must take a part in this meeting. We must take cognizance of the fact that, you know, lots of people are not responding in a negative way. Also, a lot of conversation is centred around the actual buildings. Now, I can see that, you know, historically going to the same school can be comfortable in that area. But what we're actually trying to achieve here is a major step up in the type of education that children can receive. And being one in an area where I am surrounded by 21st century schools, I can say hand on heart that the quality of education being received in those 21st century schools, the broadness of the subject areas, if you have a small school, you can only employ X number of teachers to teach. Whereas in a bigger school, you can offer subjects that you couldn't possibly have in a smaller school. So I think that needs to be taken into account as well. And of course, all councillors here who were councillors back in 2008 actually voted for the SIPS programme unanimously. We didn't say only in certain areas. Now, we're working through certain areas now. And obviously there is pushback. There was pushback in my own area, and hand on heart, I contacted Andrew Thomas a number of times in his previous role and said that there was pushback. However, they are a storming success. So I see nothing in the consultation document that would sort of change anything regarding how many people are in favour, or, you know, the same number of people are against it, and I understand that. But so far, it hasn't changed my viewpoint. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. There wasn't a specific question in that, so I'm moving on then to Councillor Rebecca Phillips.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. Thank you, Chair. Just turning to Councillor Patterson's comments there, I think in terms of the consultation feedback, I would actually suggest that it's more to do with residents feeling that the council don't listen to them than they're actually in favour of this proposal. Anyway, Councillor Llewellyn did touch on pupil numbers, which have been a concern to the local community since the beginning of the consultation. These concerns have also been echoed by Jeremy Miles, the Welsh Government Education Minister. Alan did refer to page 14, points 51 onwards, and the report figures are based on the 700 pupils, although the current 3 schools have significantly less pupils on this. Does this mean, should the new school fail to reach the 700 pupils, this project would become financially unviable? Or have you worked out the number of pupils needed for the daily running of the new school to be as effective as the current schools?
As I said earlier, the way the school is funded is on the basis of the number, mainly on the number of pupils in the school, and there's a funding formula which is the same funding formula for all primary schools. I should point out the Welsh Government agreed the business case based on those pupil numbers right at the start of this, when they give us outline business case approval. And again, I understand the confusion around the pupil numbers when you look at the pupil numbers in the schools themselves. But when we are planning school places, and unfortunately it isn't an exact science, but we do have to plan for accommodating all the pupils in a catchment area who could claim a place in that school. Now, that does not include Welsh medium. I need to make that very, very clear. So we are not planning for Welsh medium pupils in those 3 catchment areas to attend this school. These are pupils on top of Welsh medium pupils. And for instance, in that area, there's 100-ish children who attend school outside of the Swansea Valley. But in Neath Talbot, there's another 100 who attend school outside of Neath Talbot. So we have to accommodate the number of children who can claim a place in the school that we are developing. Plus, we need to future-proof as well, because we know the birth rates are going up, and we can see the growth in certain schools already. So we have to be able to, and that's I think that's the right and proper thing to do. I understand the skepticism. I understand the confusion. I can only re-emphasise again, there are no plans whatsoever to close any further schools in the Swansea Valley. I can't say it enough. We are planning a school here for the number of pupils who can claim a place, excluding Welsh medium pupils. So there's no intention whatsoever of siphoning off pupils who are intending to go to Welsh medium schools within the Swansea Valley.
I suppose what I was looking for is if we have worked out the number of pupils that are needed for the school to be financially viable, if we have a figure at all.
It doesn't work like that, Rebecca. Well, I suppose the way when a school becomes unviable is when the numbers are tiny. When you're talking about 20, 30, a school can be viable with 100 and 150 pupils in it, because it'll only get the funding for the teachers that it needs to teach the 150 children. So it doesn't quite work the way that you're describing. But there is a point, of course, at which where you can't operate a school because the funding is so low going in because of the pupil numbers. But the school will be absolutely nowhere near that level, I can assure you.
Okay, thank you. So turning to page 341, which refers to 6 schemes put forward for Welsh Government funding in 2018, 5 of which were successful. I'm just wondering why then, and I know there have been some recent developments, but why in 2018 were Ysgol Gynradd Cymraeg Trebanos not considered to be put forward for this funding?
Sorry, I haven't got the report in front of me, because which funding are you talking about, Councillor Phillips?
I understand that the 5 Welsh schools put forward in 2018 for the extra...
The term Welsh Medium Capital.
Yes.
Yeah, in 2018.
Yeah.
I don't know. My colleague, Mrs. Crowhurst, will look at that. But of course, if it wasn't, it just has been now, because I know you were present at a committee last week when we took there's a further £30 million available from Welsh Government now to invest in Welsh medium capital, Welsh medium schools, and Trebanos has been included in that, for instance, to enhance childcare and additional learning needs provision there in terms of the Welsh language. So it was probably just priorities in terms of pupil numbers, and we knew further Welsh medium capital funding would be coming available in the future, and it was about timing and sort of waiting their turn, really. Nothing more than that.
Okay, and obviously that funding is very much welcomed to Ysgol Gynradd Gymraeg Trebanos, as it is a fear from local residents that the authority does have plans to close the school. I know you have given assurances, Andrew, but could I ask that you give them again specifically to Ysgol Gynradd Gymraeg Trebanos, please?
I certainly can. We've got no intentions to close Ysgol Gynradd Trebanos whatsoever. In fact, as I said, we've just put a grant application in to further strengthen the school, and I'm glad that's I'm glad we've been able to do that. So that'll certainly solidify the school's position.
Thank you, Chair. Am I okay to carry on, Chair? Would you rather me come back later?
On mute, Sonia.
Thank you. If you've not got that many more, if you'd carry on, please, Councillor Phillips, because otherwise we'll be hopping backwards and forwards between people. So please do.
Thank you, Chair. So I share the concerns of the impact on the Welsh language in the area, currently classed as linguistically sensitive. Page 312 states that significant work is being undertaken in a number of the Welsh medium schools in the area, which will improve provision for teaching and learning and provide extra pupil places, which should mitigate against the impact of a new school. I'd like to know how the authority is supporting this. What if it doesn't mitigate the impact? And how will you support schools that may lose pupils at the beginning and therefore receive less funding until the numbers rise again once the new school is full?
The way that we're funding this is through the Welsh Medium Capital Grant. I think we're talking about Scrutiny, Pontardawe, and there's over £2 million being invested into that to increase the childcare again and the capacity of the school. And I think importantly, again, that project plus the Yslavera project will be completed before the scheme we're talking about today, so that we can promote, and I know we're not here to talk about the West, but in the West we talk about various ways that we're going to use to promote the Welsh language, not just in the Swansea Valley, but across Neath and Talbot. So it is about creating the accessibility, so having the spaces for Welsh medium learners, and then working to promote the Welsh language, and the school has a big part to play in that as well. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's fine. Just then, sorry, in terms of the Welsh Government feeling they needed to conduct their own Welsh language assessment, I'd just like to ask, is this something that they do regularly, or is there a particular reasoning why they felt the need in this case?
Yeah, just to clarify, the Welsh Government didn't do their own Welsh language impact assessment. They commissioned a report, which we agreed with, and we agreed with the terms of reference, because they felt that we hadn't adequately considered the linguistic sensitivity of the area and included enough mitigation measures should there be a detrimental impact. So it was a report which was prepared to help us complement our existing Welsh language impact assessment, which it's done, and I've included both in the set of papers so that members can see the difference, so that so they can see how this report has helped us develop our Welsh language impact assessment to ensure that we mitigate against any detrimental impact, and it is still the view of the officers that there will not be any detrimental impact, but should there be, there's monitoring in place and a whole range of mitigation measures to make sure that we do everything we possibly can to make sure that any impact is not negative.
Okay, thank you. Final one. On page 16, it makes reference to the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, and specifically to Objective 2, to improve the well-being of all adults who live in the county borough. Could we have some more information regarding this, please?
Yes, certainly. The way we believe we're impacting positively in terms of that wellbeing objective is that should this proposal go ahead, obviously there's a new leisure facility being as part of this scheme. It isn't part of the school organisation code, but it is wrapped up into the capital programme. It's not news to people that the existing Ponted House swimming pool is well past its economic life, and it is at risk of business continuity failure. So we believe that the enhanced facilities at the school, not just for the pupils, and we're talking about the pupils in the valley now, not just at Cwmtawi and the new school, but much broader than that, but also the adults who will be able to take have benefit from the enhanced facilities that will be at the leisure centre Park and Esteru site. So that's how we feel it'll contribute positively to wellbeing objective 2.
Okay, I do take some issue with that, Andrew, because we're being told that the proposed new swimming pool will be subject to a separate report and we shouldn't consider it. So I do question whether we are meeting objective 2 and that it should be considered as part of this report.
It's the reason that it's included is because it's included in the capital funding application to Welsh Government. So Welsh Government are funding 65% of the cost of the replacement swimming pool.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. That's me, Chair. Thank you. Thanks for your patience.
Thank you, Councillor Phillips. Thank you, Andrew. In that case, we move on to Councillor Anthony Richards.
Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd. Thank you very much, Chair. Some of my questions are going to be based on the traffic and highways issues and access in the site, etc. And as you know from paragraph 127, traffic issues are referred to by many consultees, including the children themselves. There was also on page 86, the last paragraph, the proposal does not appear to consider the effect of increased traffic. I know I've mentioned these questions in every meeting that we've had with regards to this. As I know you're aware, but just for the purposes of everyone who's going to be voting today, the current access road serves the retail park, the leisure centre and Cwmtawi Comprehensive School. The road is narrow and already very congested, and the proposed new school would involve over potentially 700 young children and their parents using the road to access the school. The road, for those that don't know, is also a cul-de-sac, and there is only one way in and one way out. And the road is also bound on one side by a river and a sheltered housing complex the other side, and by a steep-sided valley and canal on the other side. So how can this road be made, safe? Also, with regards to the 700 or over the 700 more pupils, how can you propose putting over 700 more pupils onto this site when the council itself has identified that many transport issues already exist? On page 42, it says the mitigation measures have been proposed to mitigate against the impact on surrounding highway networks. So what measures have been proposed? And then just on this point, on page 96, it says the planning consent requires traffic impact assessment. So what is, in the traffic impact assessment, it's, what if that traffic assessment says that it can't be done? Is there if we accept this proposal today, and the highway or planning officers say that there is an issue with this, and can you tell us how you're going to make this road safe?
Andrew, we're going to another officer for this. Who's going to take the question? Right, our Director of Environment will take the lead on that.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, the issues that the councillor is raising are issues that we will cover under the planning system. We have been liaising with colleagues within education, both in terms of the highways and the planning issues associated with the potential creation of a new school. As is indicated, they will be informed by traffic surveys which have been undertaken and are being repeated within the area. Members will recall from a previous meeting that the traffic surveys were referred to at that particular time, but we were mindful that we were in the middle of a pandemic. I appreciate that we are still in the pandemic, but most traffic levels have returned to previous pre-pandemic levels, and as a consequence that additional traffic survey will give us a better understanding of the capacity of the highway network and what, if any, improvements we would need to undertake. Now, the Education Department, as part of any proposed planning application, would have to indicate what measures would be put in place to address any highway pinch points. They would also need to submit a traffic impact assessment, a travel plan, and the latter of which would take into account different modes of transport and the active travel agenda. So all of those would be covered under those plans. We would also undertake a road safety audit to ensure that all road users, whether they're pedestrians, cyclists or vehicular traffic, are safe in relation to this highway network. Now, it's too early to give you an indication of the outcomes of those studies because they haven't yet been undertaken. And as members know, the planning system falls outside of this report, and any proposal on that site will be considered on its individual merit, having regard to the information we have at that time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Nicola.
Chair, can I come back?
Certainly, Councillor Richards.
Thank you very much. When we questioned this on June the 16th, in the meeting on June the 16th, I think it was myself, Councillor Purcell and Councillor Phillips, we raised questions with regards to this. And Andrew, I think you may remember that you said that it would be the contractor's responsibility to deal with these issues. And when we asked how this would be paid for, you said, and I'll quote, those areas that were ineligible from funding would be picked up by the local authority. So what estimates have been done on that cost? I appreciate what the Director of Environment has just said in terms of, it's too early to say with regards to this. But my concerns are, my concerns are is that we are almost, opening a can of worms here, because you can't really tell us how it's going to be done because it's too early to say. You can't really tell us how much it's going to cost, and you're expecting us as councillors to ratify this decision when we would be basically allowing this council to sign a blank cheque. So how can any of us as councillors, and it goes to Councillor Suzanne Paterson's point, when she said, at this stage, she can't see any reasons on why she would object against this. But how can any of us as councillors face our tax-paying residents, some who are paying some of the highest council tax in Wales, just expect to pay out on a potential blank cheque? Now, I know that's hypothetical, but so is the report. Because, as you said, it is too early to say. One of the other things in the report on page 42, it says that there is no existing highway safety pattern problem which could be exacerbated by the proposed development. What do you mean by that statement?
Apologies, bound to happen, wasn't it? Sorry, I was on mute. I'll pick up the funding. questions you just raised, and I'm sure Nicola and other officers will talk about the traffic impact assessment. And it is worth noting that even though Nicola's referred to the initial traffic impact assessment, all schools were open fully at the time of that initial traffic impact assessment. All 21st century schools funding schemes, projects are funded between Welsh Government and the local authority. Band A, the intervention rate from Welsh Government was 50%. This Band B, they've increased that to 65%. So we have a contribution to make of 35%. When we put the outline business case to, or the strategic outline case to Welsh Government around this proposal, we had budget estimates from the same people who prepare these budget estimates for all of our projects, both in Band A and Band B, highly experienced officers within the Environment Directorate who have a very good understanding of what the likely costs are in terms of developing these projects. So you can take comfort today in that that £22.7 million is a very reasonable, reasonably accurate assessment of what the total cost of this project will be. You've only got to look at past projects to see how accurate their assessments have been in terms of, so I don't think you'd be agreeing a blank check here today. You've got highly professional officers who've undertaken detailed assessments around the work that would be needed. Yes, you've got to go to the market and understand what the contractors submit in terms of their tenders, and it is subject to that. But other than that, as I say, we've got highly experienced professional officers who've made these assessments in the past, the same people who've made the assessment for this scheme. So in terms of your other question, I'll ask Nicola or one of her other officers if they've got any response.
So, sorry about that. I'm having a few difficulties with IT here, and I'm trying to get reports up in front of me, and I haven't got the report, all of the reports, but I've got page 42 from the appendix. In terms of the traffic impact assessment, the site is located in a sustainable location with good walking, cycling connections from the surrounding area. Obviously, the traffic reports that I referred to earlier on will identify the capacity of that highway network and whether or not it's capable of taking certain levels of additional traffic, which is why it's too early to tell at this stage what those impacts will be. However, there is always a means of addressing those impacts if you undertake civil engineering operations in the area and you improve accessibility through active travel and other means of transport, such as public transport. We are comfortable that there are no highway safety pattern problems which could be exacerbated by the proposed development, and obviously this takes into account the existing infrastructure within the area, the existing school, and the fact that there is a proposed swimming pool as part of the overall project proposed at this area. As I said earlier on, the traffic impact assessments will inform any highway improvements that we would need to secure, and should those highway improvements be required, they will form part and parcel either of the design of the scheme, which is submitted by on behalf of our education colleagues, or we can condition the security of those additional means to ensure that whether you're walking, cycling or driving to the school, you can do so safely. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, Chair.
I was just going to thank the officer, but carry on, Anthony.
Yeah, thank you, Director. Sorry, just for possibly just for myself, I'm not quite sure, but what do you mean by the safety pattern? Sorry, can you just confirm what that actually means?
It means that there is the ability to accommodate all modes of transport, whether you're walking, whether you're cycling, or whether you're driving, or whether you're travelling to the site via bus. There are no inherent problems in terms of the network to accommodate whatever means of transport you are taking to get to that particular location. So this will be further supported by a road safety audit, which we will require as part of the planning process. But what we are saying is there are no significant problems or issues which would prevent us from accommodating additional traffic at this particular location, having regard to the existing network, which may have to be modified or may not. But those modifications, if necessary, will be informed by the design of the school and the traffic survey data which comes out in future.
Thank you for that response. I am a little bit confused. A number of years ago, we were requested, myself and Councillor Purcell, I wasn't able to make it, and Councillor Purcell went on the behalf of both of us, was requested to go and look at the road safety outside Cwmtawe School. And we thought that there was going to be one issue, and when the audit was undertaken, it was recognised that there were 6 road safety issues outside of Cwmtawe School. I contacted the head teacher of Cwmtawe School to ask questions on whether or not there was still road safety issues outside the school, and his response was, yes, we still experience traffic issues around the school. We've engaged the support of the local authority and the police over the past 5 years, and it has been highlighted in our safeguarding audit undertaken by the council. The main issue we experience involves the volume of traffic along Ffordd Park and Ysteru, and as you can imagine, this is further compounded in poor weather as more families use their cars to transport children to and from school. So this has been picked up as, not just one road safety issue, but there were 6 road safety issues at that time, and that was a few years ago. So I'm a little bit, it doesn't give me confidence in that statement of saying that there are no existing highway safety problems, because it seems to me that there is an issue, and the head teacher has confirmed that. And of course, for those who are not familiar, Cwmtawe School is in front of the new proposal of this proposed school. So to me, there are many other issues that cause me concern. And to go back to that point, we are absolutely honour bound as councillors to trust the officers to make factually correct statements in our reports, which we have to take at face value. However, even that comment, and again, I'm sure the director will come back, but to me that's proof that one of these factual statements is actually a misstatement, and having seen that so many other statements are extremely vague throughout this report, I suppose you wouldn't be surprised in me saying that at this point, contrary to what Councillor Paterson's views were, that I would suggest that we reject this whole report, and I would respectfully ask officers to go back and start again.
There were similar concerns expressed at Cwmbromble, a much more difficult site in many ways because of the one-way road system at Dyffryn, the old Dyffryn School. And the 21st Century Schools proposal was an opportunity to improve things significantly. You are right, Councillor Richards, there are traffic, and I would say there are issues with traffic coming into contact with pupils, and whenever that happens, there are concerns expressed. And I know I've spoken to the head teacher, as has one of my deputies, Chris Millis. But in the Cwmbromble case, as is the opportunity here for this case, we've got an opportunity to improve things for everyone around traffic management. So we would certainly, as part of the development of this scheme, look to make things better at the point where you just said there are issues.
Yeah. With regards to the schools,
can I ask Nicola Pearce to come back in first, please, Councillor Richards? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of this particular query in relation to this particular school, as I've said earlier on, we will have a traffic impact assessment, and that will take into account the traffic from the existing buildings and operations down in that particular area, as well as modelling the new traffic levels from the proposed school and swimming pools. So it won't just use a baseline of naught, it will actually take into account existing traffic movements. As I've already said, a road safety audit will be undertaken. It will be undertaken independently of our highway officers. So we commission that work on behalf of the authority, and we have undertaken road safety audits in the past. And what those audits tend to do is they identify requirements of a development in order to address safety issues, but they also identify comments which don't necessarily require resolution, but they're comments that should be taken into account in terms of the operation of a facility going forward. I'm aware that we've had issues around a number of our schools throughout the county borough, as have other authorities, that we're aware of, and those issues tend to relate to behaviour by traffic drivers, by users of the highway, whether they're pedestrians, cyclists, or vehicular drivers, and they will be taken into account as part of the travel plan. In order to move forward sustainably, we should be reducing the need to travel by private vehicle. And I appreciate that is easier said than done, but the travel plan will require us to inform staff and parents of the need to adopt and embrace sustainability and to rely less on private modes of transport. So they will be included within the travel plan. They're not new to this authority. We've been requiring travel plans for a number of years now, they should, if they are effective, will drive down vehicular traffic within that area from private vehicles. And if necessary, we will also impose via a condition on any planning consent which is considered coming forward, the use of traffic regulation orders to ensure that pupils and staff going to and from this school are safe when using the highway network. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Richards.
I'll just come back on that point, and then I'll allow Chair for you, well, not me allow, but I will, you can go to somebody else, and then I have got some further questions. But
very good of you.
I'm not telling you how to do, you're chairing very well. I am just concerned that the report, I've said this before, with regards to some, in my opinion, sweeping statements that get put into the report. If I was a councillor in an area that is not close to Pontardawe, if this was, in Port Talbot, for example, an area that I'm not as familiar with, I would look at this proposal, I would look at this report, and I would think that, there are no existing highway safety pattern problems. Of course I'm going to vote this. There aren't any. And, I asked that question, and now we've discovered, yes, there are. There are problems there. The head teacher has confirmed it. You are aware of it. But in the report, we're putting things like there are no existing highway pattern problems. I just feel that, as I said, is there a plan B? What happens if all of this comes in? There are huge costs to these proposals. I know you're confident that they're going to come in at that point. I mean, price for anything is going up and up and up and up and up. Just trying to do stuff in our own homes, things are costing far more than what they were costing previously. So, when were these proposals, or when were these estimates put together? I do go back to that point of, are we signing off a blank check here?
Thank you, Councillor Richards. I think you've made your point, but I think all of us as councillors, wherever we're located, will be aware of traffic issues outside of our schools. I don't think there's a single school, to my knowledge, that doesn't have those problems. Can we therefore move on? And the next person I've got listed to speak is Councillor Wyndham Griffis.
Thank you, Chair. Just two quick questions, really. I understand that if the this project is to go ahead, we've got to acquire land from the King George V Fields Association. Is that correct?
Not quite, Councillor Griffis. The land at Park Ynystera where we're proposing to build this is in a deed of trust to the King George V Trust. So we have had to detail an area of land which is at least equivalent to the area of land that the school would be built on, and we've done that, and we've had the permission from the Field and Trust. We've had confirmation that they're happy for the land at Pondedower Recreation Ground. They're happy, so some of that land will be put into the King George V Trust, and we've got written agreement from the Fields and Trust organisation that they're happy with that. So that element of this project has been sorted, Councillor Griffis.
Thank you. One quick question. If this school goes ahead, but the parents of the children in the outlying villages like Godregraig or the area decide that 5 miles is too far to go to take the children to school at that young age, and decide to put them into the Welsh medium system, can you guarantee that the Welsh medium system schools in the area will be able to take X number of pupils?
Well, as I said earlier, we've developed capacity at Pondedower, Ysgol Gynradd Pondedower. There is capacity in Trebanos, and also there is space in the primary element at Ysgol Gynradd Yslefera, the 3 to 19 school in the area. Now, obviously, I can't guarantee, because if all the pupils decided not to go to the school, then obviously not. But I really don't think that will happen. But one of the reasons we've built the capacity in the area is so that we can respond to growth. And in fact, we will agitate growth and develop growth for the Welsh medium language in the Swansea Valley. Part of our WESP is about that. Part of the Welsh Language Impact Assessment, which we discussed today, is about promoting the Welsh language in the Swansea Valley to make sure there's no detriment. So there is capacity in the schools in that area for further Welsh medium pupils.
So what are you saying if the number of pupils that are supposed to be going to the new school will be about 600, if 100 of them decided no, they would rather go into the Welsh medium, that they could be accommodated?
I wouldn't want to put a number on it, but yes, there is definitely capacity within those schools to accommodate the numbers.
Right, thank you very much.
Right, in that case, we move on to Councillor Marcia Spooner.
Diolch Cadeirydd, and thank you for the report. I've just 2 main points to raise. There's been plenty on about the education and the actual school. I know that the report, we're not discussing the swimming pool here, and I know Councillor Phillips picked up on that slightly earlier, but I thought it was part of the original proposal that the school and the swimming pool would be built. And it said integrate the pool and school facilities, creating a new sustainable school and community asset. So we're asked to approve the school building, but we're not discussing the swimming pool facility. So I know, Mr. Thomas, you mentioned confusion earlier. Yes, I am confused. Am I agreeing to the original proposal, the outline business case, or am I only voting on school? That's part of the policy.
Yeah, we are required by the school organisation code when we reorganise schools to conduct ourselves in a particular way, which is about consultation and objection report. And there's a very strict sort of legal framework we have to work within, and that's what we're doing. There is no requirement for us to consult with the public around replacing essentially an old pool with a new pool. But because the funding for the swimming pool is included within the school package, and as I say, Welsh Government are, if this goes ahead, funding 65% of the replacement pool, and also in our business case to Welsh Government, we describe the benefits, the health and well-being benefits of this campus that would be created at Park Ynystera. So it's included in the funding package, but there's no requirement to consult on move in a swimming pool, but quite clearly there is in terms of reorganising schools. So that's why the two things are linked within the report. There's no need to consult on the closure of a pool and build a new pool down the road, but obviously that there is with schools. But the funding is coming from Welsh Government's 21st Century Schools pot, because we described what we felt would be the health and wellbeing benefits to not just the pupils of Cwmtawi, obviously the new school, and all the pupils in the Swansea Valley, and quite crucially, because we were asked this, including Welsh medium pupils as well. Plus then, outside of school hours, holiday time, evenings, there's the health and wellbeing benefits to the wider community. And so that's why it's included in the report.
Okay, sorry, can I come back, Chair? I just wanted to, that's why I've got some questions to clarify what the school will do, because there is a part of the report that says, yes, Cwmtawi pupils, Llangw, Galltwen, Ysgol Gynradd Gymraeg Pontardawe, Ysgol Gynradd Gymraeg Trebanos, no mention of Rhyd Row and Rose. So it's, you know, I noticed that it's not in there. Is it implied? Is it implicit?
What, in terms of use of the swimming pool?
Yes, yeah, it's not meant. I've gone through the report. I mean, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 or 7 points in the report today referring to the swimming pool, but we're not discussing the swimming pool. So
the intention would be for as many of the pupils in the Swansea Valley to benefit from the health and wellbeing facilities at Park and Ystero as is possible. I'm not sure if Rose attends Neath Leisure Centre for its swimming. I'm not. It doesn't, does it? It goes to Pontardawe, does it? In that case, Rose and Rhyd Row would certainly be included. So they're not being excluded for any reason. It's just other than they haven't been detailed within the report. But yeah, absolutely.
So can I just come back, Chair, on my second point? And the second point involves Rose. I only noticed on this report, I didn't notice the one on June, that wards affected include Rose. Now, I could give you a list of the way to be negatively affected if this went ahead. What are the positive gains that Rose ward would get from this development?
I think the reason it's included as wards affected is because we know that there are pupils in Rose who live in the Swansea Valley and likewise. So just for completeness, it was included in the wards affected to make sure that we don't try to exclude anybody in terms of where we know pupils come from and where they travel to the various schools. But there's nothing detrimental to Rose from our point of view in this. We see Rose as a thriving school.
And that's the point. Again, going back to other schools that may lose pupil numbers because the parental choice is to go to the new school. So I can see that some would choose to go to the new school if that went ahead, which would lower the numbers. And I think a part that Councillor Phillips tried to make earlier was, at the beginning, people will want to send their children to a brand new spanking school and it's really nice. The numbers will drop in surrounding schools, not just Welsh Medium, Rhyd Row and Rose. So what's going to happen? Will the Education Authority support those schools while the numbers dip, and then very well may rise again once the new school is full?
Well, this is where the council's admissions policy is so important, because in our admissions policy, we give preference to those pupils who live in the catchment area of the school, and therefore, once it's full, children from outside of that catchment won't be able to claim a place in there anyway. So, and that's why, as I said earlier, it's not an exact science trying to plan a school, but we do have to look at the pupils who are able to claim a place within the catchment. But that's our mechanism for if you like, defending and planning school places. It's our admissions policy. It's not the, it's not a hugely scientific tool, but it does work in that respect. But in terms of would the local authority support schools when they go through a short-term financial dip, we do that already. Some schools have what we call recovery plans. We look at their pupil forecasts, and if we know that pupil numbers are forecasted to come back up, then we support them temporarily until such times as the pupil numbers increases and therefore their budget share increases. I'm sure there's probably elected members on this call who have benefited from those conversations in the past.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I now have listed to speak next Councillor Sandra Miller, and she will be followed by Councillor Rob Wood. I've then got notifications from people who've spoken before, Councillor Alan Llewellyn and Stephen Hunt. please indicate if you do wish to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate coming in. Mine is a statement that is very similar to that of Councillor Patterson. I too live in an area where 21st century schools has been applied to both comprehensive and to primary elements, and we've seen the benefits of such. Courts Art demise, then to be subsumed into Baybaglan, thought, oh, it's never going to happen. Britain Ferry people, no, some fields people don't mix. How wrong I was on that, because the children that go to Baybaglan, I'll say, are having a whale of a time, because they are having absolutely first-class teaching in a facility that's absolutely brilliant. And of course, half our ward goes up to Kevin Syson, and of course they've just been blessed with a 21st century school, and I've never seen so many children smile going to school. I never did, and I went to a new school and it was the bane of my life, I have to say. And then of course we have where Courts Art was, we have 3 schools that come together. Llanthywel, Bryn Hyfryd and Ynys Madi have come onto one site into Carragir, and it is, considering how far it is for small children to come to that school from the furthest end. Now, there would have been catchment for Llanthywel. It's amazing how these children are excited along the way. I see it, it's a main road, a very, very busy main road, and they are delighted to be going to school. Now, I'm governor, chair of governors of a school that's in also in the catchment area, and I'm fortunate to have a head teacher that's absolutely superb in giving the best opportunities to our children, IT-wise, etc. And of course, we're a little way off for what a 21st century school would be, but I would be grabbing it both hands, I have to say, because we've seen the effects of it on our youngsters, and you know, it's incredible. If I'd have felt about school like these kids are going to school, I might have done a lot more with my life than what I have, but absolutely first class areas. And no, children adapt. They do really adapt to the surroundings that they go into. And I think that we have to really think, you know, we've seen the reports, we've been on this journey for some considerable time. We've all read the reports. It's not that we haven't read the reports, but I think we have to really look at giving these children what they want, what they need. And I think if we don't do that, we would be doing them a huge disservice. And I'm not putting my hand up for doing that disservice at all. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, in that case, we move to Councillor Rob Wood.
Thanks, Chair. I want to raise a point, and it's mentioned in the recommendations that nobody has touched on today, and I think it's a very important point and something that we should all bear in mind, and that is, as I see it, the new school that is being proposed to replace the 3 existing schools will have a learning support centre attached. This will allow children with additional learning needs the opportunity to attend the same school as their siblings. You're looking at 3 schools here whereby they could have siblings with additional learning needs who would now have the opportunity to attend the same schools as their brothers and sisters. I have personally witnessed the benefit of this because I am fortunate enough to be in an area where our school has a learning support centre. And to me, I think that is absolutely great and wonderful to see. And when we're talking about 5 miles, let me tell you, my son was going to Banwen from Talbot every day for the last 6 years. So let's not talk, let's not split hairs here. Let's look at the benefits and let's vote that we go for those benefits. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. Right, I've got all the people who are indicating to speak have spoken before, so I'm going to go back through them in the order that I think they opened up. Ah, right. Sorry, Councillor Hunt. No, you're not coming up on my screen, but I'm quite willing to give you a chance to speak. Councillor Nigel Hunt.
Thank you, Sonia. I just want to, I'm a bit concerned about the way this meeting is going, and but anyway, I'd just like to pick up on some of the points that Councillor Patterson made earlier. She said that a few people.
You've muted, Councillor Hunt.
I'd just like to make a few points on what Councillor Patterson said earlier. She said that quite a few people have written into this consultation. It's hundreds of people that have written into this consultation. And I think that Andrew Thomas confirmed that 98.5% of the hundreds that wrote into this consultation were objecting to the proposal. So I think that it's a real concern for me that the consultation is being dismissed as being only those that are against it write in. This is supposed to be the listening council, and there's a consultation here that if you're dismissing hundreds out of 98.5%, then this whole exercise is just a box ticking exercise. So I have profound concerns here that we are dealing with a very familiar fait accompli. The whip is out and we know where this is going. So I'm quite angry about it, really. And whereas Ms. Sandra Miller says about pupils in her area, are any of the 3 to 11-year-old pupils in either of these urban wards being forced to travel 5 miles? If they don't have a car, if they miss the bus, they've got to travel 5 miles. This is really unfair. I've sent my kids to a Slovenian school. I know how difficult it is, but I'm a supportive parent, and it was my choice to do that. Furthermore, when Councillor Patterson says about there being no issues in Baybaglan, I would suggest that she goes to Village Road in my ward on any given school day and look at the cars parking on double yellow lines and look at the hazardous crossing that children have to take every single day. And this council didn't see that come in. And as we stand now, there is still no pedestrian crossing in Village Road. And any of you that would like to go and see Village Road on any given day should not be saying there's no problems in the 21st century schools. There's profound problems. Thank you.
I don't think anybody said there were no problems, just, they brought up particular considerations about them. Can I go to Craig Griffis briefly, please?
Indeed, thank you very much, Chair. Just to pick up on a point that was just mentioned, obviously, by Councillor Hunt, I would just draw to members' attention that it is built into our scrutiny procedure rules that there is to be no whip ultimately in scrutiny, and a member shouldn't be voting ultimately if anyone has given an indication in respect of a whip. But just given that that point has been made, it was important for me just to raise that to members' attentions, Chair.
Thank you, Craig. And I certainly am unaware of any whip being used in this committee. So I would move to the next person on my list, which was Councillor Alan Llewellyn. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. I'll try and keep it brief. It's just coming back on some points that have been raised, and I have indicated that I'd like to come back in at a recommendation stage. But I put my paw up, electronic paw up, Originally, when the director, Mr. Andrew Thomas, was referring to Godwr School, and that there are some pupils at Godwr School that are outside, that are coming from outside the catchment area. When we're talking about potential pupil numbers for the new development, and this is quite interesting actually, because when Godwr School was first slated for closure, and I forget how many years it was now, but it was quoted that the school had about 90 something pupils, and that the numbers were going down. And I know that Councillor Rosalind Davis and myself, as the members for the catchment area of Godwr School, pointed out that there were going to be new housing developments in the area, and also that in terms of new leadership, the school was going to improve. And that proved to be correct. And I haven't got the exact figures before me, but it's approximately 150, 160 pupils now in Godwr, going up from 90 odd. And I don't think it's in the current report, but it was in the previous report, showing the percentages, which I think are the ones that Andrew quoted, the percentages from of Godwr pupils that come from within the catchment area. And it's very, very high indeed. You know, this is a school that draws its pupils from its own community. And those pupils will be taken out of that community, despite the increasing numbers, despite the improved standards, if this proposal goes ahead. And the point that Councillor Suzanne Paddison was making, you know, that it isn't just about buildings. Well, it's not to do just with buildings, the buildings. It's to do with the location of schools in relation to their community. So here we have a school that's been growing in its own community and is now going to be completely uprooted under this authority's proposals. You know, it doesn't, you know, that doesn't seem to be a good basis for making that decision. And Suzanne also mentioned sorry, Suzanne, I'm not having a go, but you put your head above the parapet, you know. And, but you know, Councillor Patterson mentioned about the response, you know, that is 2% of the potential population of the catchment area. Well, do you know how many obstacles have been in the way of people making responses? You know, nothing was made easy to respond to this phase of the consultation. You know, there was no pro forma, there were no meetings, there was nothing like that. You know, people had to individually write by email and so on. You know, you know, nothing's been made easy for people to respond here. And you know, perhaps I'll ask the officers, can they tell us, you know, 2% response? Can they tell us what the response in the same area has been to the Let's Talk initiative? You know, the Let's Talk initiative, they're the flagship initiative for everybody to give their views.
Sorry, Alan. I haven't got the answer. I haven't got the answer to that, but I.
No, I realise that, but you'll understand the point that I'm making. That it's very, very difficult for people to respond, especially when they think. You know, I mentioned in my previous comments how disillusioned people have been about this process, you know, and they don't think that there's a point in responding. So I think there are hundreds of people that have responded to this, to this consultation, and I don't think that their views should be dismissed as being insignificant. And then, as I'm on the subject of schools being retained in the community, the director mentioned the investment in a Solera, Chair of Governors, and obviously I welcome it. It's very, very long overdue, given the deplorable condition of the buildings that were there. But one of the key points of this, and it was establishing a 3 to 19 school, is that it maintained primary education in the same community, albeit on a different site, in the same community. What's being done in Godwr under this proposal is to take that primary education out to the community. So there is a distinction, I think. There we are. And I would just like to repeat the question that I asked earlier, because I was trying to come back in at the time. Andrew, as the Director, referred to the responses that have been given within this report to the Welsh Government's Supplementary Language Impact Report. And I did ask, have those responses been accepted by Welsh Government and approved?
Well, to be honest, the report, I don't know whether Welsh Government, I would assume that the report was commissioned by Welsh Government, and therefore they are happy to accept the report that the planning consultant has provided to them. I've heard nothing to the contrary, so I assume that they've accepted that report. And what I've done is taken the mitigation and the summary out of that and included it to enhance our Welsh language impact assessment. So
Yeah,
I think that's the important part of it.
I think, Chair, that's the point of my question. I mean, have our responses, because we haven't had sight of this report, we only had sight of extracts of it, but have the responses that have been made, and we have had sight of those, have they been accepted by Welsh Government?
Sorry, Alan, which responses?
The ones that are included in
the mitigation measures.
The mitigation measures.
Yes, yes. As far as I'm concerned, yeah, we've had certainly nothing to the contrary. We've had a meeting with Welsh Government about it, and they certainly didn't tell me they weren't happy with the mitigation measures. Which is why it's so important that I'm telling you that we've included them all within our Welsh language impact assessment and our WESP, which I know we're not here to discuss. Can I just also clarify something you said earlier, Alan? You said there were barriers to people responding in this consultation. There were no barriers no greater barriers in this consultation exercise to any other consultation exercise, because if we'd held public meetings, we always tell people exactly the same thing. We make notes in those public meetings, but we tell people, if you want to put a consultation response in or a formal objection, it is you have to do that yourself, and you have to do it in writing to certain addresses, which they've been provided in this case. So there's no greater barrier in this process than there's ever been in any one of the other proposals. We don't note their objections for them. They have to make those objections themselves, and that's always the case. Similarly with the consultation responses. So I just wanted to draw that. And if you, if you are interested,
I accept that fully. You know, there's no difference. You know, I'm not saying there's any difference in terms of this proposal compared with previous proposals. What I'm saying is that in the strategy consultation phase, there was less facilitation of response than there was in the previous informal. You know, that the onus was being put entirely on people emailing in individually. You know, whereas in fairness, in the previous phase, you know, there were some other ways that people could respond, and there was more sort of interaction online and so on. And it's just unfortunate, but you know, the effect of it is to depress responses, but nonetheless, you know, as you see, the proportion of responses has still been, you know, quite clear in what they say. You know, it's anyway. It's
okay. I have to say, I have been in discussions in scrutiny committees where we've complained vociferously about forms for consultations and wanted more free-form consultation as councillors. So I think it's you know, it's something which is really quite debatable as to the openness of the consultation there. Can I move to the next person indicated, and that's Councillor? I'll say we go briefly to Charlotte for a comment. Yes, he's had an incident occur at home. He's had to leave the meeting. I'm moving therefore to Councillor Stephen Hunt, and then I have Councillor Rosalind Davis and Councillor Anthony Richards to follow that. So Stephen Hunt, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll try and be very brief. I mean, when you follow Councillor Llewellyn, he usually covers some of the points I was going to allude to again. I don't want to go over old questions that have been answered, but I just want to not for us all to lose sight of the actual document and why we're here today. I mean, the 21st century school and the programme is an excellent programme. The school itself and those that run the services within the school, and not just the teaching staff, teaching assistant and others, are exceptional professional people and do an outstanding job. We mustn't lose sight of that. I think Alan touched on it. It's the circumstances that surround the schools and catchment areas and what happens to the communities and the schools that close within a proximity of a super school. And as a councillor for the Valley community, a rural ward, it's all very well to suggest that the school's education are first class, which I think everybody would agree with. But we only need to look at the Avon Valley that has been decimated since pupils had to travel from there all the way to Port Talbot, the community itself. So can I just ask one question to Andrew, being as he was very kind and given assurances for Trebanos and the Swansea Valley, no more further intentions of closing schools. Is that the case for the Delice Valley, the Swansea Valley, the Neath Valley and other rural wards? Can you today confirm that you're not going to be closing any further schools going forward? Thank you.
It's going to be impossible for me to give you that assurance. We've reviewed education in the Swansea Valley, and we've got a good grasp of what's going on there in terms of the different languages and capacity. And should this proposal go ahead, I think we've got a long-term solution for the Swansea Valley, which is sustainable and one which can drive standards and give pupils fantastic standards of education going forward for the next 30, 40 years. But there are issues across the school estate, and we're not just talking about building conditions, so it would be impossible for me to give that assurance carte blanche, Steve, as I'm sure you can understand. We will be bringing a report forward probably early in the new year around our Band C proposals, and then members can see what we've got planned for the next term at that point. But I think that's the opportunity to discuss what will happen in the next school reorganisation band when we bring a report back in the new year.
Okay, I've just had a conversation on the side with the Democratic Services Officer. We were considering we're moving into the third hour of this meeting, and we were considering whether it was due to need to adjourn. We now have about 6 speakers remaining listed, so we've decided we will move through those as long as the rest of the meeting is okay with that. So, Councillor Rosalind Davies, please.
Thank you. Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd. Now then, you all know that Godreg Primary School is still sited in supposedly temporary accommodation on Pwm Tower School South. Now, I stated this before. From 2019 to 2024, they're expected to stay there. Now, that is not temporary, and it's not fair on the staff and the pupils in that school. They haven't been able to have a hot meal since COVID because they can't go over to Pwm Tower School. Now, that is not looking after the pupils and the staff in that area. Now, you still expect them to stay down until 2024, or are you going to do something about putting them on a decent site?
I think this proposal is about putting them onto a decent site. In fairness, Councillor Davies, obviously the circumstances as to why they're there at the moment are outside of the council's control. There's a report going on, I think, November the 5th, which deals with the issues around that spoil tip. We have had conversations with the head teacher and the governors to try and make things in terms of that hot meal, for instance, just as an example, and breakfast clubs. The circumstances they're in are certainly not ideal, and they're certainly not what we want. What we want for our children is for them, every one of them, to be educated in the 21st century schools, and that's what we're trying to achieve with this proposal. But we had to get them out of the buildings for the reasons that have been reported previously, and that's where they're at. And a lot of it depends on what's decided today.
Thank you.
Chair, I think
I'm not disputing that.
So sorry, Ros, you were on mute. So
yes, I'm not disputing that at all, Andrew, but there should be a special case because the majority of the children now who have been in the school for the last years will have gone through their education in a primary school in temporary buildings with no facilities that they should be having. That is not a good education for the children, in my opinion.
And I'd certainly agree with you, which is why we're trying to change things today.
But it needs to be changed sooner than that. You can't leave them go through. There is land available in Godricreg, and you know very well there is, and we should still be a special case, as far as I'm concerned, and everybody who attends Godricreg School.
No. Okay. I'm aware Councillor Miller has her hand up and is on my list. She's not next, but just to inform her, she's indicated that she keeps losing a connection. I'm going next to Councillor Anthony Richards.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. Thank you, Chair. Just some of the interventions that we've had. I will go on to my points, but I mentioned Councillor Paterson, and I think Councillor Llewellyn picks a really good point there. You know, if you're going to pluck something, some information, then you need to compare it with, the Let's Talk consultation that's gone out and compare those figures to see how many people actually responded to that. And Councillor Miller gives lots of lovely anecdotal experiences of pupils. I would probably ask the same question for her to consider is, how many pupils has she spoken to who leave the existing schools and their experiences, and also to compare the Estyn reports, because we have Estyn reports for Ysgol Bai Baglan, which she's mentioned, and how do they compare with the schools that we've currently got in place? Because if you have a little look at that information, there are not significant differences. In fact, some of our schools have better Estyn reports than the one that Councillor Miller mentioned. However, I will move on to my points, and these are with regards to the environment. So on page 15, with the implementation of mitigating actions, the proposal should have at least a neutral impact on biodiversity. Okay, great. What mitigating actions? No mention anywhere in the 450 pages of this report on the effect of the environment, apart from page 16 refers to Wellbeing Objective 3 to develop the local economy and environment so that the well-being of people can be improved. How will the environment be improved?
Nick, do you want to deal with the biodiversity first?
As part of the planning application, biodiversity is a key material consideration, and habitat surveys would be required to support any planning application. So that's flora and fauna. So we would look at the baseline. Welsh Government policy is that you have to either enhance or safeguard biodiversity on a site, ideally on the site. So you would have to mitigate for that loss on the site itself. So you would integrate it into the design of any new development. And if that's not possible, you would have to mitigate off-site. So you would potentially have to translocate any species to a strategic receptor site. So all of those issues would be considered as part of a planning application process, and any impact associated with biodiversity would have to be mitigated in a replacement scheme. Thank you, Chair.
And I think, Anthony, your second question was around Wellbeing Objective 3 and how this scheme contributes towards that. Is that correct? I think the way we've described this is that whenever we submit funding for Welsh Government, there's a requirement within their rules so that we ensure as much money goes into the local economy as possible. We secure as many jobs within the supply chain as possible, as many contractors are used within the local supply chain as is possible. And we have to, one of the things we have to do to Welsh Government is report how many local jobs are created and how much of that funding is spent in the local economy at the end of the post-project completion. report. So that's a requirement of Welsh Government funding. So that's how we believe that it's going to have a positive impact on wellbeing objective 3.
And with regards to the local shops in those local communities, Godricraig, Alltwen, Ynys Meadow, etc., you know, a lot of those businesses will say that without the school and the people walking to the school, home and to school, that a lot of their businesses will close. My final point was with regards to what the chair mentioned at the end of my last questions, where she said, I think all councillors are aware of traffic issues outside all of schools. That's absolutely right, including the new schools, as Councillor Nigel Hunt mentioned. But what we're saying here is, as I said, we're going down a one-way road, a cul-de-sac, and you are exacerbating that situation by having 3 schools, condensing all of that, those traffic issues in one centralised spot, which already has a tremendous amount of issues currently. So yes, you're absolutely right. There is traffic issues outside every school, but we're going to make this situation even worse down on the Parc Ynys site.
I'm moving to Councillor Suzanne Paddison.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. Right. Councillor Nigel Hunt is not the only one who can get annoyed. It's well known at the moment that politics is getting a bad name. You know, things can turn a bit personal. He seems to be suggesting that I cannot come to a decision of my own free mind because I belong to a party that I am, you know, I am at the beck and call. No one who knows me will be able to tell you that I cannot come to something of my own free will. And that is exactly what has happened today. When I mentioned the 300 of people that have objected versus the rest, this is I did say, in my own opinion as to human nature. If you're in favour of something, you don't write in and say you're in favour, but if you're against something, you do write in and say you're against it. And I think as a person sitting on this committee with a vote, I'm quite entitled to say everything that I've taken into account. I've taken into account the reports, the objections, everything. It doesn't seem to be very nice to say that I have been coerced in some way, and I want to make it absolutely plain that that has never, ever happened to me. We, as part of our party, never suggest that other parties are doing this.
Councillor Paddison, can I remind all councillors that we're here to scrutinise the paper and that scrutiny is not a political process, please? Can we please stick to the material aspects of the paper?
You're on mute, Sue. Sue, you're on mute.
Sorry, somebody muted me then. I would argue, Chair, that, you know, I've been mentioned a few times today, and I just felt like I should be able to say, because this is recorded, because public will have access to this, that I have never been coerced into any form of thinking to vote in any committee, and anybody that knows me will understand that, and I do take exception to it, but I will stop now. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Paddison, and I believe you do have a right to defend if that is the situation. Can I then move to Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Chair.
You've gone on to mute, Councillor Miller.
Yeah, my system seems to do what it wants in these days. Can I just answer Councillor Nigel Hunt? The children that go to Carrick here, yeah, walk from the river bridge down into school. They walk, and mainly because, one, their parents can't afford the bus, and two, they don't own a car. So, you know, these children do walk, and they walk proudly to school. And when you stop to speak to them or their parents, they have no, and I mean no, objection to the walk, other than if it's actually tipping down with rain, and then we all do that, even stepping outside our front doors. Can I also support Councillor Patterson? You know, we've all had the report here. We've read it numerous times, even though it's of length. You know, we have read it, and I feel that I'm in a position where I am able to make a decision of my own free will, and that no, I would suggest that others give us that courtesy, because it doesn't seem to be coming from a number of people, which I am disappointed at. We are one council, and we are making decisions for the benefit of the children that we support in our education system. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. I have no other indications, and I sympathise with those whose mics have gone on and off, or I've had ghost hands appearing throughout the whole of the time, so I have to keep checking with the Democratic Services Officer if a hand is real or not as we move forward. So we are now going to look at the recommendation, and Councillor Llewellyn wants to come in. Sorry, I haven't got a showing from Councillor Llewellyn. Can I invite Councillor Llewellyn to come in, please?
Yes, thanks, Chair. I'll just put my hand up now. I wasn't sure if we'd reached quite that point. And thanks for letting me come back in as I'd requested. And thanks to everybody for all the you know, all the heartfelt contributions on both sides of the argument. We've reached the point of the recommendations. Now, having received advice from Craig Griffis, the Head of Legal Services, I will not be proposing an amendment, but because of the number of questions and concerns raised and the lack of support in the affected, lack of support for the proposal in the affected communities, many of us will vote against this proposal. If we turn down the recommendation today, which I think is the right thing to do, and for Cabinet to take notice of that, there will be an opportunity to hold a meaningful discussion on the future of primary education in the Swansea Valley. So I will be joining other colleagues, I'm sure, in voting against this recommendation. I also request a recorded vote. Thank you.
Can I ask the Democratic Services Officer to come in there, please? Right. So we'll need a proposer for a recorded vote and someone to second that, please. So you've proposed it, Councillor Llewellyn.
I'm happy to second, Chair.
And Councillor Anthony Richards seconds that. And can I have a show of electronic hands, which I know are coming up better on the Democratic Services Officer screen than mine, as we need a certain proportion of the committee to back that proposal. So if you're in favour of a recorded vote, please raise your electronic hand. Thank you.
Chair, I can see that we've got 2 seconds. I think it's just changed. From what I can see, I think there were 11 hands up, Chair, but we only need 4 anyway for the 4 members for the recorded vote to go through. So that's gone through, Chair.
So we move to a recorded vote on the proposal. So I then pass to the Democratic Services. Are we going to do it by hand? Or we've got to do a recorded vote by going round to every councillor through a roll call, haven't we?
Yes,
So,
Chair. What I suggest is if you go through the recommendation firstly and then get a proposer and a seconder, and then I will go through everyone's name then individually and ask for, against and abstain.
Okay, I haven't got the recommendation formally up on my screen just at the moment because everything's gone down. So if we go there, the recommendation is.
Chair, apologies as well. I can keep seeing that Councillor Phillips and Councillor Nigel Hunt hands keep going up as well. So I don't know if you just want to address that prior to us going to the recommendation.
Councillor Hunt, have you got something you wish to say? Councillor
No, sorry,
Nigel
Chair.
Hunt.
I can't get my hand down. I'm trying to get my hand down. Apologies.
That's all right.
So,
It's doing it a lot. It's doing it a lot. That's right. I'm still going through for the recommendation. My apologies. So,
Chair, I have the recommendation in front of me. Do you want me to read it out?
if you could, please. My machine is refusing to take me back through the pages at the moment.
Yeah, so members, as you can see, the recommendation is on page 25 of the report. So I will go through, there's 3 recommendations there, so I will read them through just to be clear for yourselves and the members of the public that are in today's meeting. So as you can see, it says, having given due regard to the consultation, objections and the impact assessments in relation to equality, risk, community usage and Welsh language, together with the legal implications, and in the light of all the material, it is recommended that, in line with section 53 of the School Standards and Organisation Wales Act 2013, members determine to implement the proposal to establish, with effect from the 1st of September 2024, an English medium 3 to 11 school with an LSC in new build premises to accommodate pupils from the current catchment areas of Alltwen Primary, Godregraig Primary and Llangwch Primary, all of which would be discontinued on the 31st of August 2024. The proposed date of implementation to be the 31st of August to the 1st September 2024. The sites and buildings of the 3 vacated schools be declared surplus to the operational requirements of the Education, Leisure and Lifelong Learning Service. And as members are aware, when I go through for the recorded vote on this, this is to support this recommendation or not support it to Cabinet. And Cabinet will then make that full decision. So Chair, if you're happy, are you happy for me to go through the members for the...
It would be good, I think, if members state whether they're for or against, and
bear with me just 2 seconds.
Okay, so if we're ready.
Yeah, so firstly, if I can just have a proposer and a seconder for those recommendations.
Right. Can I have a proposer for the recommendation in the report, please?
I move, Chair.
Thank you. And a seconder?
I second, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Paddison and Councillor Miller.
There we are, Chair.
In that case, can I ask the Democratic Services Officer to move to the recorded vote, please?
Yes. So if I start then, members, when I call your names, if I can ask that you either say for, against or abstain, please. So if I start with Councillor Matthew Crowley.
I'm for the proposal, Charlotte.
As previously mentioned, Councillor Freegard had put her apologies in, so she is unable to vote. Councillor Wyndham Griffis.
Against the proposal, Charlotte.
Councillor Joe Hale.
Against the proposal, Charlotte, thank you.
Councillor Sian Harris.
Against, Charlotte, thank you.
Councillor Nigel Hunt.
I'm against, Charlotte.
Councillor Steve Hunt.
Against that, Charlotte, thank you.
Councillor Jane Jones.
Against, Charlotte.
And as members are aware, Councillor Dennis Keogh left earlier in the meeting, so he is unable to vote. Councillor Simon Noyle.
Against Charlotte, thank you.
Councillor Alan Llewellyn.
An open Charlotte against.
Councillor Sandra Miller.
Sorry, Charlotte. 4.
Councillor Rydian Maisen.
4.
Councillor Suzanne Patterson.
I'm for the proposals.
Councillor Sheila Penry.
For the proposal.
Sorry, Councillor Penry, did you say 4?
Yeah, it's 4.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Rebecca Phillips.
An erbyn, against.
Councillor Mark Prothero.
For the recommendation, thanks, Charlotte.
And Councillor Lynette Purcell put her apologies in, so she is unable to vote. Councillor Saifra Harman.
For Charlotte.
Councillor Suzanne Renkes.
4.
Councillor Sonia Reynolds.
For Charlotte.
Councillor Anthony Richards.
An erbyn, against.
Councillor Marcia Spooner.
An erbyn, Charlotte, against.
Councillor Rachel Taylor. Oh, apologies, she had her apologies in. Councillor Dave Whitelock.
For, thank you, Charlotte.
Councillor Rob Wood.
4.
Councillor Alwyn Wilcock.
For.
And then co-opted member Adam Amord put his apologies in. Co-opted member Marie Caddick.
I wish to abstain, please. Abstention, please.
Thank you. Co-opted member Linda Newman had put her apologies in, and co-opted member Roberto De Benedictis is absent. So that's all the members of the committee. Chair, if you could just give me just a couple of seconds just so I can count these votes up, and then I'll get back to the committee. There we are, Chair. So I've counted all of those votes up, so I can confirm that we have 12 for the recommendation, 11 against the recommendation, and 1 abstention. Therefore, due to the majority going for 4, that recommendation is supported to Cabinet.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. Therefore, we will conclude the meeting. And can I remind members that as there are no urgent items, can I remind members that the Cabinet will follow immediately on this meeting. So can I ask members to
5 minutes.
In 5 minutes, thank you. Yes, we have decided to take a brief comfort break prior to the Cabinet meeting. So the Cabinet will then follow this meeting.
Chair, if I can say that Cabinet will start at 20 to 5.
Right. If people didn't hear that, it is Cabinet at 20 to 5. Okay, we've got our ducks in a row. So if I ask people to withdraw from this meeting, and those who are invited to attend the Cabinet at 20 to 5. Thank you.
Yeah, he's just put his hand